Cool. So I'd like to welcome to my podcast today. I have Skye from the band Sumo Cyco. Welcome, Skye.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
Absolutely, my pleasure. How are you today?
I'm pretty good. It's been a busy time. I was up super late last night editing videos, so I'm probably running on a few hours sleep, but it's okay. It's good. It's good to keep busy. It keeps me distracted, so I'm not thinking about how crazy the world is, and
Yes.
I'm staying in my own little bubble.
Yes. Yeah. No. That's important. That's important. It's good to have distractions. Um, I mean, let's talk about the band. You've got a new album due out next week. No, 2 weeks. When is it? 7th of May. So a couple of weeks.
Don't scare me.
No, I think
I think, have 19 days. I'm counting down the days. 19 days.
Awesome. So by the time this comes out, it's gonna be like 7 days. That's why I was like,
Okay. Sorry.
no,
7
that's all
days
good.
now, guys.
It's all good. It was all good. I like it's got a nice timestamp on it right there. But yeah, no, you got a new album. It's called Initiation. If we take it back a little bit, actually, I mean, you guys have been on sort of my radar for a while, in and out of the UK, and I used to live in the USA, and I think that's where I first heard of you. And then you collaborated with Skindred or Benji, Benji on a track with Mountains, which was really cool, and that got me sort of playing you guys on my show, playing you guys in the club, stuff like that, and then sort of now you've come out with these 3 tracks, which we'll talk about in a moment. But I went back obviously at that point and listened to some of your previous work and stuff, which is really good. But this new record is really shaping up to be something. I mean, it just sounds so big.
Thank you.
Like you've made this awesome progression. I mean, throughout your entire career, one random thing I found out literally hours ago that my kids may have heard you before, which you probably talked about before on many shows.
Yeah.
But you were the voice of or the singing voice of Barbie in Barbie Diaries. And I've got a house of girls, and they have all those Barbie DVDs. And I should have fished it out. But no, I mean, that's equally as awesome. I mean, I've had Disney alumni on before, with the Imagination Movers, which were on Disney Junior for many years.
Cool.
A rock band for kids, which was amazing. And I've got you on here as well, which is but, I mean, you probably talked about that a lot, so we'll keep it with your current output, which is Sumo Cyco. The tracks you've released so far, you got Bystander, No Surrender, and you've just released Vertigo as well.
Yeah.
Bystander, absolutely fantastic track.
Thank you.
Tell us a little bit about it. I mean, tell us about the album. Really, it's like I said, it sounds like you've got this big sound now, and you've really kind of evolved into what you are now, obviously. I really think this is a great stepping stone, because obviously I think recently you signed to Napalm as well, a couple of months ago, which again is a fantastic label. They've got a whole host of bands that I absolutely adore on there. A couple of new bands coming through. You got TotalRock and stuff like that. They're about to release their new album, their second album, in fact, but their new album.
Great band.
But how tell us about Bystander.
Yeah, so Bystander was written during the pandemic, so it kind of had those feelings of feeling helpless and stuck and just viewing the world through a screen, and feeling like I almost wanted to just jump out the window at some points, which I kind of made happen in our music video. But Bystander, I feel, is a really good song to capture a lot of the different elements that Sumo Cyco likes to bring to the table, which is, from the raw aggression to super catchy kind of hooks to, a little bit of the punk side of Sumo Cyco, a little electronic vibe. So there's lots of those kind of different elements all stuck into one song, which is a good kind of intro to some people who may have not heard of Sumo Cyco before. And yeah, I'm really proud of that track. I loved working on it in the video. But when you talk about the record sounding big, it's not by accident. Matt Drake, who is the guitarist and co-writer of the record, he's produced all of our material up to this point, and really, I feel like the last few years since we've been working on this album, he's just really taken his mixing and his engineering skills like into a new stratosphere level, and that was also pushed by the fact that we also worked with another producer on this record too, who really kind of pushed us to make sure that our mixes lived up to where his were as well.
Yeah.
So we've definitely, I think, over the last few years since the last record, pushed ourselves as writers, as musicians, as performers, and I think it comes across in the new recordings.
Yeah, it certainly does. I mean, listening, like I said, listening to your previous work and things like that, that has evolved into it. I mean, it sounds great. It's tracks that when we were kind of like, or when we are open again, I will be playing in nightclubs, because I DJ a lot of rock clubs and stuff around the sort of UK area, and yeah, and I've been playing it on radio show, I've been playing it on my live stream, stuff like that, so it's been getting a lot of love from, that's all right, it's been getting a lot of love from me on this side. And then you released No Surrender, and again, fantastic. These 3 tracks are, I'm just going to say it now, they are great. But tell us,
like to hear.
Yeah, tell us a bit about No Surrender.
So No Surrender is another one written in quarantine, and that one came about with just Matt just pulled it out with like a killer instrumental, and I think he nailed that one. It was one of the instrumentals on this record that I really didn't have much to say about. Normally I'm like, no, change this part, change that part, but it was just like that driving like verse and right into the kind of big chords in the chorus. And I remember I was on a road, I was driving back from up north, in cottage country up north where all the lakes are, and I was hanging out by a lake for a few days, getting all vibed out, and was driving home, and it was a few hour drive, and I literally just wrote that song on that drive. So I just kept rehearsing and singing the lyrics and just perfecting them as I was driving home. And by the time I got home and pulled into the driveway, I was like, Matt, I got it all. We're gonna record this song. And it just really felt like it all came together. And it's funny, I actually had a ring that I bought that had the words No Surrender on it. And I kind of put it sometimes on my ring finger to remind me that I'm married to the music more than anything else. And I was looking down at that No Surrender ring because sometimes it was reminding me through quarantine that I have to, not get discouraged about the situation in the world and keep believing in our dreams and what we wanted to achieve. And that's what was kind of sitting in my head while I was driving home was, I can't let all the doom and gloom get me. I have to still, push through and not let it consume me and make me feel depressed about the world and about my life and all that stuff, and just, keep going, live with no surrender, be true to what your dreams are, and don't let like all that stuff like mess with me. So that's kind of what I kind of wrote No Surrender about.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think this is why I've like kind of gravitated to it, because this whole, like, obviously we took the COVID situation around the world has really played with everyone's minds and stuff, and I've always been looking for that kind of that positive side of things, and I'm trying to talk to people positively about these things. Like I've had like sort of projects that have kind of gone to the side. I've like backing various sort of like, trying to advertise a festival or something like that unfortunately now isn't happening. But obviously talking to musicians like yourself across this past year has been a real eye-opener, like for me. And obviously, a lot of bands have kind of adapted. They've kind of adapted mid-flight, I think the term is, and it's trying to trying to see the positive side out of it. Now, like we've come into this year, I'm a bit more positive about it, because I'm halfway vaccinated now, which is great. So soon, thank you. Soon, hopefully, I'll be fully vaccinated, or at least the second jab, anyway. And sort of looking forward to the summer and actually, seeing, along with other things, live music. But this time I've span it to be more positive in the way of actually listening to bands that I get sent, because there's some bands that unfortunately I don't get time to listen to, which sucks. I hate doing that. I used to be a musician and I'd hate to know that my stuff
Mhm.
passed over. And like with this sort of like time out that we've had, I've had a lot of time whenever I've got like these emails come through from press agents or from the bands themselves, I've actually had a chance to sit down and listen.
That's
Um,
great.
which is fantastic. I mean, I've not suffered like for work or anything during this time. My work have paid me to be at home. um,
That's good.
so I was like, I'm not in any sort of like, sorry position or anything like that. And like just with your music, it is so positive and bouncy, I think the word is, and just so like with the production again, it just sounds so big, and it's sounding great when I'm mixing it as well. So like
Cool.
with my show, I mix with other tracks. I make a sort of club mix of rock songs, and because you've got that electronic element in there, it's really made it a pleasure to do so, because there's somewhere
Thanks.
where bands don't play to a click, which is fine.
Yeah. That's gonna be hard to mix.
It's a little bit, but no, I mean, I'm loving your music, and you've just released Vertigo as well. That came out about a week ago, as we're recording this.
Mhm.
Yeah, just tell us about that track, because the video is absolutely fantastic. I love the video.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. The track came about with this producer named Kane Churko. He's has a awesome studio called the Hideout Recording Studios down in Las Vegas.
Mhm.
And we were lucky enough to work with him in August of 2019. So Matt and I flew down there and had 2 weeks of partying on the strip in Vegas and writing songs all day. And it was just like a total vibey, awesome experience. Kane was super cool, super talented guy. A lot of people may know his music. He's produced bands like Papa Roach and In This Moment, Five Finger Death Punch, and tons more. But he definitely, I think, came at the right time for us. We were kind of feeling like we needed something to kind of like push the record a little further than we've taken it before. And we were looking for collaborators. And most of the time, Matt and I do everything ourselves in our home studio, very kind of like wake up, tired in our underwear, just like working, very kind of like, oh, let's take a break here, get inspired, go for a walk. It's very, a lot of people picture like the studio experience is like, this intense experience where you're in this beautiful facility. Well, most of the time for me, it's like in my living room on a laptop. So having that kind of experience, to go back into like a beautiful studio and feel that awesome vibe being in a new place like Vegas really kind of got us going. And Kane is super talented, and I think that was almost like a springboard for us to push ourselves for the rest of the record, because he had made us kind of have to match his sonic sound of that big kind of production. So we were like, okay, we got to bring it up to Kane's level. And yeah, and it was so cool working with them. It was a super fun time. We did another song that's on the record called Overdrive as well. So
Mhm.
that has a similar vibe. And Kane does have a sound that leans a little bit more like industrial in the way that he
Yeah.
approaches like the production. And I think you can hear that, as well as really being able to like thread the needle with also those pop kind of hooks in between all of that like aggressive sounds. So he's done a really good job with it. We're super stoked on the song, and the video is, man, that was a lot of work, but it was a labor of love. I'd been working on that concept since last summer,
Oh,
and we even I even filmed some of the elements for that video like last September. So I've been working on this video on and off for a long time, and I'm so glad it all came together. Matt killed it with the set design.
mm,
It was all done in quarantine, so it was literally a crew of myself, Matt, the two band members, and one other person,
yeah.
Francesca, who helps us a lot in a lot of our endeavors. So it was a lot to get done with our small crew, but we figured it out.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a fantastic video. I mean, all your videos have been great, and knowing that you kind of work on it like on that aspect yourself, as well as the sort of like music production side, that's amazing. You've kind of kept it self-contained, if you will, so you can actually follow your vision through, and
Yes,
you've obviously
exactly.
you've pulled in Kane for additional inspiration and things like that. because obviously you learn from that experience. Like he has his way of doing things, and you sort of pick up the bits that work for you. And that's the great thing with like collaborating with other producers and whatnot, and along the lines you can kind of pick up those hints and tips that can that can help you in the long run, or you can have a really bad experience with them. I've had both ways, and you know, but at the end of the day, it's just kind of like it's great to see a band like yourself like doing everything kind of like DIY to a certain degree.
Totally.
It's you don't. I mean, you do see it quite a lot these days, in as much as like it's usually the sort of same kind of music that comes out of it, being the punk or the sort of like thrash or things like that. And a lot of bands are very DIY, keep it in, you know, releasing 7 inches, all that kind of stuff. But like seeing a band like yourself with the sort of like the sound that you have, where you have that kind of rock element, the pop element, the industrial element, and you've got the visual side of it down as well, which is
Thank you.
amazing.
It's a huge, yeah, it's a huge part of what we do. We've always directed our own videos. We like the idea of having a thread that kind of ties everything together because it's all the same vision. A lot of the time, you know, music videos are a whole new beast to kind of tackle, and I think some bands enjoy the process, and then there's other bands that don't enjoy the process as much. They don't, they're like, I play guitar, I'm not really big into like, you know, this whole like in front of the camera thing, and I understand that, but I've definitely grown up as a child of the internet, and you know, YouTube feels like I've grown up with it. So the visual aspect of everything has always been, to me, like it kind of always needs to go with the music. And when I think of songs, I think of the visuals as well. It all kind of comes together. And I want people, when they're listening to a song, to kind of see where I'm coming from in a way. And I think that that's what the visual element can do, is kind of put someone in a mindset of like where I am when I'm writing the song, you know, or how I'm feeling, what kind of colors and vibes are making me kind of feel, express myself. And but yeah, it's something that we've taken a lot of thought and time in to kind of build our DIY skills. And ever since we started as a band, we had no idea how far this band would go, if we'd have any budgets to do these types of things. So we were kind of always in the mindset of, let's figure out how to do this ourselves and save as much money and save as you know, cut as many corners as we can, because you never know what's going to happen in the future. And to me, to be able to like survive as a band, some of these skills are have helped us and been super important us to be able to keep going and to keep having content. And you know, the pandemic has given a perfect example of that. Is there's so many bands that aren't able to do videos because they can't be in the same city with their bandmates, or they can't hire a crew, or whatever the obstacles are. But it's nice having the fact that we're like, oh yeah, we could figure something out, you know, because we can do it ourselves.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. That's exactly what I was going to say. I mean, with the lockdown, world lockdown and everything, I've spoken to a few bands that don't have, or they are based in different countries, which normally wouldn't be a problem. You know, they could fly various European countries. You can kind of fly in cheaply to one area and then, you know, rehearse, go out on tour, everything like that. But then, you know, now a lot of people have adapted to things like this, like Zoom, doing Zoom performances, and things like that, which is, you know, it's fine, it's fun. And I've loved watching some of the live streams that some of these bands have done. But like with the fact that you can still produce your own music videos, I mean, that's huge, you know, and you have the know-how to do it as well, where, you know, if anyone's just picking up a computer, you know, at the first time and they're trying to figure out, I don't know, iMovie or Final Cut or you know, any of the other sort of video software, you know, it's a learning curve. And it's some of them, they're like you say, I'm the guitarist, I'm like play the guitar. And you know, and they don't want to learn that, you know, they continue learning to play guitar, but they'll like learning, like during this lockdown I learned how to use OBS, for instance, for live streaming purposes. And that's been my thing, because I've been doing DJ live sets and stuff online. So it's just kind of, you know, trying to adapt to that side of it. And I was trying to put my head into like what kind of mindset like you bands are in during this time, because like I said, I was in a band many years ago and we didn't have to deal with anything like this. And it's just sort of like to adapt and kind of find what works for you. And like with the promotional side of things this time round for you guys, what, you know, obviously I know you keep your sort of social media content rolling on that front, which is great.
Oh yeah.
But how have you kind of like, what things have you learned this time around with the promotion side? Because obviously you can't go out and play shows, you know, which is a huge part of promotion for any band.
Oh yeah.
But what have you guys kind of like learned, or what have you kind of really sort of like knuckled down on, or was there something that you weren't, you know, aware of before this happened that, you know, works really well to promote, if you will?
Yeah. Well, we've been doing a lot of, we haven't actually went for it and done a live concert yet. We haven't braved that. We've been a bit nervous because so much of our show is so integrated with crowds and getting in the crowd. And it kind of breaks my heart to think we'd have to go to a venue where there's nobody in front of you and you're trying to perform. So I haven't got up the guts to do that, even though we've had some requests. We've done some more acoustic stuff though. I've learned the piano. I got back into that. I used to play when I was a teenager, and this Christmas Matt got me an old antique piano. So I've been learning our songs piano style. There's some video on YouTube if people want to check that out, like No Surrender piano style.
Nice.
And we've also been doing like a lot of just live stream chats with our fans. So on certain holidays, we'll do like a theme, or every single release we've been going on and just chatting with our fans. And to me, that's been a really great outlet to just kind of keep everybody up to date with like where we're at, where they're at, get kind of a temperature for how people are feeling, and just keep relating to those people. I mean, one of my main pieces of advice that I always give bands when they're trying to build fan bases, or when anybody asks me like, you know, what do I do next? You know, I want to start this band, is I always just make sure that they think about their fans as like relationships. Like you want to make relationships fan by fan. And too many times, sometimes I think people focus like on the numbers, like how many numbers are going up on my socials or my YouTube video. And I think remembering at the end of the day, the important part is actually having relationships with those people that are behind the numbers. So making those people feel close, making them feel involved, listening to them. I know some artists, and I do have my self-indulgent moments where I'm like, you know, I can't care what anyone thinks, but I do care what our fans think. And I do kind of like when they weigh in and tell me what stuff, oh, that really inspired me. I like when you did that. And they can bring me as much inspiration sometimes as I can bring them. So as much as you can keep that back and forth exchange happening, because we don't get that in the live shows these days, is trying to create a little bit more of that dialogue with our fan base. So whether that's commenting back and forth, we're very on our socials. So some people think we're a little bit too much. You know, we comment back to almost everybody. We try to comments, and we're always like seeking out like, okay, where are people talking about us? Let's get in those message boards. Let's be part of the conversations, which is another whole thing that has been very interesting releasing music, especially through Napalm, is the reaction that we've gotten, because now we are being exposed to an audience that, you know, isn't our tight little fan base and everyone is just exchanging great vibes. You know, now we're getting some of those, like, we're casting a bigger net, so we're getting people that are starting to throw like some crappy vibes in the situation, and how our fans deal with that and how we kind of respond to that has been kind of interesting over the last few months while we've released these new singles. But it's kind of cool to notice that we're a bit of a polarizing band, and some people love us and some people hate us, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, the reaction is the important thing. If no one was saying, or if anyone was saying nothing, then that's worse, because it's like, well, what's going on? But if they love or hate, I mean, I was going to ask you, like, the sort of like signing to Napalm, because it is, I mean, predominantly it's sort of like a sort of more metal label, or it has been in the past. But they do have some absolutely, like, they've been signing obviously bands like yourself. They've been really branching out and supporting the whole kind of rock scene. I mean, I've been actually quite fortunate having a lot of their roster on my show, just through
Cool.
the promotion and people like that I know, and like I mentioned before, TetraRock, they were kind of my shout for 2021. I absolutely love that
So
band,
cool.
and they've got an album due out as well. Not supposed to be promoting them, I'm promoting you guys. But obviously, like, I mean, they had Skin Dread for a bit, which were friends of mine as well.
Yeah.
Obviously they're no longer on Napalm, so they're on another label now. But you know, just over this like year, like getting to know this label, I've had like a lot of their sort of German bands on as well, like Fireschwanz and things like that, and that's like more sort of like folk, what do they call it, cosplay metal, if that makes sense.
Interesting.
Yeah, they're kind of like role playing, like they're very much decked out in old like medieval attire and things like that, but they did an absolutely fantastic cover of the Hobbit song, the one that Ed Sheeran wrote, Icy Fire.
Oh, okay.
And it's brilliant if you like that sort of stuff. But no, just like the diversity on that label is fantastic, and obviously, like I say, it's casting a bigger net for you now, and how obviously you kind of gone, how does it feel on that front of having that kind of like polarizing effect on it? But what was the sort of like,
Yeah.
you know, when like Napalm come for you, what was that like?
Yeah, so we actually had a little bit of napalm interest way back in 2017.
Hmm.
One of the representatives happened to catch a show, and she went back and like kind of said, "Hey guys, you should watch this band, see what they get up to." And time passed. We ended up working. Our management is with Oracle Management, Des Fafara and his wife Anastasia, and Des is singer of the band Devil Driver, and they're on Napalm Records.
Yeah.
And then we had the amazing opportunity to tour with Ginger, another Napalm Records band.
Yep.
And when that started coming together, and we had like the executives coming to the Ginger shows and catching us play, I think it was a little bit of an eye opener, because I think they realized, that we could kind of hold our own with a band as fierce and, heavy as Ginger, and saw the response of the crowd really kind of still being open to our more kind of brand of rock and roll. And
Yeah.
I think when they saw that happen, they're like, okay, I think this band could reach, a good audience for our label, and kind of had that crossover, right, from the some of those heavy metal fans can understand what we're doing, but we're also trying to bring in people that maybe never have listened to heavy music before, and they're just
Yeah.
getting started into kind of this world. And I kind of like being the bridge between all these different genres, and letting people kind of feel welcome, that they can be part of this. And I think that's one of the things when we talk about the response that has been a little bit disheartening, is feeling like there's some type of like gatekeeping, or the fact that some people don't want that bridge to be built. They just want to be like, you're either in this group or you're in that group, and they just like, shun anything that's actually on the border, or trying to kind of like cross those boundaries. And it's kind of interesting, because it's pushing some people's buttons, and I don't even know why. But sometimes I'll just post a video of myself, and then I'll just start hearing people like, what are you doing, why are you doing this on Napalm, and all this stuff. And I think it's great what Napalm's doing.
Yeah.
Music isn't meant to be just like one thing. It's meant to open people up, and it's meant to for me, help people discover more down each rabbit hole that they get down into. And I can't tell you how many times that I've started liking a band, and then you kind of see what their influences are, and you start kind of just like following the clues on YouTube, or getting referred to something else, and then you end up stumbling on a band you've never heard of before that you end up falling in love with. So that to me is what music discovery is all about, and what I love about the scene. So it's kind of interesting that so many people feel like it's almost like that we're kind of like the outsiders on Napalm, which in a way I think that they do have so many different diverse artists that I don't feel like we're outsiders. But it's kind of, to me, something that needs to happen in heavy music genre is we need to make it more inclusive, that anyone can be part of the scene and feel like they can, you know, listen to whatever they want and they're not going to be judged for it, that they're going to be welcomed. So that's something that we bring as a band, try to bring to every show, and everything that we do is like you said, make it a party, make it feel welcome, positive, and yeah, bring a little light and color
Yeah.
to sometimes what could be a dark genre.
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, back when I was younger, the bridge band that didn't get me into metal, but it was like the generation after my kind of like teenage years. And we're talking like Linkin Park first album, Papa Roach first album. When I was young, I was like, oh, they're awful band, you know. I was too cool for school at that point. I was like 20 years old. And like being on that side and then realizing like now, like, I mean, it didn't take me till now to realize that how big a band that they are and what they've done for the industry and what they've done for a lot of people. But the amount of like musicians I've spoken to, and Hybrid Theory is that crossover album for them, that bridge for them into heavy music.
Yeah.
And, you know, going back to that time, you know, the new metal phase of music, there were a lot of bands out there that then they discovered. So from Linkin Park, it was Limp Bizkit, because they had the huge hit with Chocolate Starfish, and Papa Roach with Last Resort and stuff like that. And those were huge songs, like when metal side of things at that era as well. And they were the bands that people and that got them into the heavy music. And when I was younger, it was, you know, Iron Maiden, Guns N' Roses, itself. Those were the bands that I heard. Like the first band, like heavy band I really heard was Motorhead, and that was because a TV show had them on, like a sitcom used to have like a musical act come in, and they played Ace of Spades. And I was like 4, 5, 6 years old. And it was a show called The Young Ones, if you want to go back and watch it. It's very typical British comedy at that point. But you know, it was just sort of like that was the sort of like moment for me, you know. And then I kind of, you know, in my 20s, but I didn't go on message boards and slag people off because they weren't really a thing at that point. But I probably would have, like, knowing the kind of person I was then. Since then, like getting to appreciate these bands like Linkin Park, and not just because, like, obviously, you know, the tragedy that's kind of surrounding them. Like before that, like, because I'm a club DJ, those songs, they fill the dance floor. It's what people want to hear. You know, and you know, and I'm hoping that for you guys, like for this generation coming through. I mean, I've got 3 girls of my own, and you know, they're into varying types of music right now. They're on a sort of like K-pop kick, which is fine to a certain degree. But I
recently had a K-pop experience I could tell you about too.
Okay, cool. I'll go on to that in a minute. Yes. No, I mean, they're into various, like, I've got a 17-year-old, a 13-year-old, and an 11-year-old. So varying types of music. The K-pop seems to be a unified thing for them, but the older one loves Foo Fighters, things like that as well. And I've got them into you guys. I've got them into like a lot of, like, I'm gonna say female fronted bands, but only purely because a lot of the music I listen to is predominantly male, and I want to show them that the women can do this too. So it's you guys, it's Arch Enemy, it's Ginger, it's Nightwish, Epica, you know, all the different sort of varying styles, and they absolutely they love your music. They love Bystander in particular.
That's awesome.
I catch the lyrics and singing along to it. So
love it.
But yeah, tell us about the K-pop side of things, because that's quite an interesting thing, I mean, at the moment. So
it's funny how I really hadn't never experienced it as much before, but most recently one of my older songs got covered by a young 17-year-old K-pop star. Her name's Yujin, and she did a cover, and I just never saw my Instagram blow up the way it did until I had a K-pop reference and somebody had covered my song. And it was crazy how many, like, K-pop fans were just so happy that I just gave her, you know, one little shout out to say like, oh, cool, she's covered my song or whatever from back in the day. And it was just like, whoa, this is the type of fandom that, you know, I feel like we need to bring back into these other genres where they're
Yeah.
just going so crazy. They just love it so much. And it kind of excite me in a way, just um, how caring and considerate they were to just say, they were so protective over their artists, to just be like,
Yes.
oh man, like thank you for helping our favorite artist get the word out. She would really appreciate this. And I think that that was kind of an eye opener for me, because I've always heard about how powerful these K-pop fans are, but I
Yes.
never really experienced it firsthand. So that was kind of crazy. But, you know, speaking about your daughters and how cool it is that they're, you know, starting to expand their musical taste. I mean, they're in the exact age that, you know, those kind of different things have a huge impact
Mm.
on the music that influences them for the rest of their life. I mean, I remember all the music that I heard when I was in my early teen years was like, you know, some of the stuff that's stuck with me. And now when I hear it, it's always brings back those memories of those times in my life. So it's really fun, I think, to be that age and watch you know, young girls kind of develop their new tastes and where they're going to go. And that's always been really important to me too, as far as like showing at least a little bit of clearing somewhat of a path in a way for more females to get into the genre and feel comfortable and welcomed. And, you know, I think a lot of people fear that getting into heavy music kind of means that you need to kind of act super aggressive and super heavy at all times and be like so tough all the time to like prove that you can like hang with like the dudes. And to me, I feel like bringing a feminine energy that is, you know, a little bit more on the colorful, kind of bright, you know, I guess cheerful side is something that almost a lot of people feels clashes with the idea of like metal and heavy music. And I kind of like that juxtaposition. I really love, you know, I grew up a lot of the time in my old career going to Japan a lot. And the Japanese culture of kind of like this kawaii, cute meets heavy. And one of my favorite all-time what they call, like, I guess it's art, it's like a Hello Kitty character, but it's called Gloomy, which is a pink bear that eats children, but all the pictures of it just depict this really cute pink bear with just like blood dripping from its mouth and its hands around like this little boy's neck. And I always loved it. And then the actual artist actually came to one of my shows back in the day and like hooked me up with all this cool gloomy stuff. And I was like so into it. And I always loved that kind of like, it's super cute, but it had this like dark undertone under it.
Mm.
And so I've always been about that kind of like mashup of, you know, bringing like a super big smile and, you know, happy cheerleader vibe, but then I just get on stage and scream my head off. You know, I love those juxtapositions of wearing like a super girly outfit skirt, but then like, you know, jumping around the stage and crowd surfing like a maniac. So to me, it's about bringing it all in, all those different things that influence me and just kind of like letting it all explode like a rainbow. So if I can make it feel like more young girls and women can possibly feel more welcome and represented in some way, that's, you know, that's awesome. I totally encourage that.
No, I love that. I mean, that's the thing with my girl. That's the one thing with my girls. I want to sort of let them know that this can be for them as well. You know, if they want to get into that sort of side of it, they don't have to be doom and gloom. They don't have to be. I think they use the term emo. That's their term.
Yeah.
But you know,
Yeah.
and it is something, because I've been in the industry. I'm doing the sort of journalistic side now, and getting to speak to you guys is fantastic. And I'm trying to sort of like, you know, help with the breaking down of those walls to a certain degree, or glass ceilings, or whatever it is on that front, just purely to give, you know, let people, just tell people to give people a chance, you know, and it's okay to like certain things. You don't have to be, you know, obviously everyone has to grow in their own way. I don't like telling people what to do, but like if I go back to my early 20s, then, you know, being too cool for school and being very kind of like, this is my music, very closed minded into that sort of area. And I'm much happier opening it up to everything. So it's just sort of like showing that, you know, it might work for you as well. So
Yeah.
those listening.
Who knows?
Exactly. I've got a couple of questions left for you, if that's all right, and I'll let you get on with the rest of your day.
Yeah.
What I want to know is, this is more about yourself and your sort of musical tastes and stuff, but normally I would ask for your sort of like 3 sort of top albums or 3 most pivotal albums, but what I'm changing up this question because I've asked it almost 200 times now. So what I want to ask is, what are your, like, if you could, like, your 3 sort of albums that are more honorable mentions. So you can have your sort of like top 10 albums, which, you know, you probably know by heart. But what are your sort of like 3 like notable ones, as in, like, you know, honorable mentions, so they're outside the 10 but they're still important?
That's a good question. So much music out there that's influenced me and over the years, and it's funny because to me I feel like it always changes. I think my top 10 is always shifting around a lot, whereas I think some people have their like go-tos that they know every single time, but for me I feel like it's always kind of popping in and out. But um the records that I've listened to that I think front to back that I feel like maybe haven't made it into like classic albums status. One of them comes to mind first is The Weird and Wonderful by Marmozets.
Nice.
And they, I think, are super talented. I'm not sure what they're up to right now, but I loved that record front to back. And I felt like it was really kind of cool to see, you know, all these family members, which I think there's three family members in one family and 2 in the other, and then they combined and made a band together. And I just thought it was kind of cool to see them all kind of just grow from being, I think they started like super young, like they're all in their teens, and just like kick some butt. And I saw them perform there at Download Festival, and just kind of watching them for a bit, and I really enjoyed that record. So I would say that's on the list. I also have been really enjoying recently the artist Grandson, who's a little bit more on like the kind of he does like rap, but it's very heavy mixed with like electronic kind of like it has that party vibe, I think.
Okay.
But he's very political and solo artist. He's Canadian and American. I think he's dual citizen, and just kind of brings to me like another bridge artist that I feel can take people who may not listen to heavy music starting to like those heavier tones put into their music. And he just released a record called Death of the Optimist, or of an Optimist. And I suggest people go check that out.
Cool.
And the other thing that would be on my list, if I had to round it off with the third, I've been listening, this is a little bit of a throwback, but I've been listening a lot in quarantine to vinyl. I've been going through my dad's old vinyl collection and my boyfriend's old collection from his family, and just finding like all these kind of older gems. And I'm really into Genesis, and I just listened to the Duke record that's like super progressive and rock, and I always think of Phil Collins as like the guy that did like the Tarzan soundtrack, because I grew up, you know, with that kind of generation of Disney movies, that I kind of thought it was cool to hear more of like the rock side. So that record's really strong, and it's been a go-to whenever I have my vinyl player spinning, to put that one on. And it reminds me of my dad playing me some stuff that I don't think I understood when I was a child, but now I'm starting to like realize all the stuff he was showing me is actually kind of sinking in more, and I'm enjoying it a lot more now that I'm older.
No, I'm in exactly the same boat. I'm being a DJ, classic kind of vinyl DJ behind me, like under here, the turntables, for instance. um, um,
Yeah.
but no, I mean, I love that old sort of like prog rock, old side of things. I've been quite fortunate to have a couple of like guys from Genesis, guys from Yes, and Kansas and stuff like that on the show, and like going picking their brain, because
Cool.
those were my like dad's favorite bands. Like with you, I got his record collection, and
Yeah.
go through it regularly, and it's like there's stuff in there that, you know, you don't realize, you know, was that either that heavy, or that kind of like it had that vibe to it that you kind of didn't, you think, like, because sometimes you think old music kind of has, you know, a certain sound to it, but
Hmm.
especially with vinyl as well, vinyl just adds a layer of sound to everything, I think, and it's just, I'm very passionate about. I could go on ages about them, but I won't. But that's awesome. I mean, those albums, like the Marmosets, I love the Marmosets. I've been recently getting back into them. I just picked up their 2019 album. Can't remember what it's called. Brain's gone. But yeah, no, recently they're great album,
Yeah.
great band on that front. Again, I don't know what they're up to at the moment, but hopefully
Yeah.
something will come out soon. Um,
Yeah.
I'm going to check out Grandson.
Yeah.
Sounds right up my street on that front. I'm going to check that out definitely. And yeah, I've been checking out Genesis and stuff, so I can see.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So my last question for you, Skye, if that's all good, what I want to know are, what are your hobbies away from Sumo Cyco? So when you're not, I mean, you do everything for you, writing songs, producing songs, producing videos. What kind of stuff do you do to kind of like, you know, unwind, or, you know, if you need to sort of like just disappear from it? Is there anything else you sort of get up to?
Yeah, so I guess like my number one wind down is hanging out with my dog. So she's awesome, and she's been loving us being home and not touring as much. She normally stays with our neighbors when we go on the road. So I think she's been like at my hip for the last year. She's on my at my feet right now. She won't leave me. So that's what I spend like my downtime, just chilling with her, going to the park, going for walks, all that kind of stuff. But I've also learned a few new hobbies in quarantine. I decided I was gonna start mold making and
Okay.
like carving in like clay,
Yeah.
and I made a few new props, kind of like what do they call it when you kind of you it's like production of props, I guess, is kind of like a thing. But
Yeah.
I'm using resins and different mold making materials and carving different things. And I have a 3D printer as well that I've been experimenting with. So anything in that, oh, fabrication was the word I was looking
There you
for.
go.
Yeah, fabricating different types of just things that could either be in music videos, jewelry, objects. I just really kind of like the idea of taking things into my own hands, as you probably know with what I've talked about with music and video. So if there's anything that I feel like I want to create, whether it's, you know, like I said, jewelry or a prop, my head always goes to, how would I do that from scratch myself versus who am I going to hire to do this? I always try to think about if I could learn a new skill and make it happen. So I recently, like when the quarantine started, I made these little molds of our character called the Pteronaut, which is like our skull character that has these spiral eyes. And I made a mold of it and then started making candles that I would sell on my
Oh, wow.
site that were in the shape of our Pteronaut character. So that was a really fun project that I didn't even think I would ever do, but you know, you wound up with some time on your hands and you thought, what could I do that would be kind of cool? Now that all my fans are sitting at home as well, I was like, I'll make a home collection of things that'll make your home all vibey. So I made pillowcases and candles and sweatpants and anything I thought people would want while they're chilling at home.
Yeah. That's amazing. That's amazing. I mean, you've certainly made the most of the time that you've had. And I've got to agree with the having it, like, obviously I have a dog as well, and
Nice.
us being home has been, you can tell, like she's absolutely loving it.
Yeah.
She is constantly like, either she's like sat with me, she's not right now at the moment, she's in the house, but normally she's out here with me when I'm doing these things, and she's just sort of attached to my leg, you know, or
Yeah.
lying on my feet, keeping my feet warm. But yeah, no, that's absolutely brilliant. And yeah, just sort of like, you know, being creative with everything, and like, and I love that sort of mindset of like, you know, rather than who can I get to do this, how can
Yeah.
I do this? And that's something that I kind of do as well. It's like how I learned to sort of like, you know, with this OBS thing and live streaming, is like, you know, I could ask or go, you know, pay someone or whatever to kind of like buy all this equipment, and then just go bang straight onto it. But I've gradually built up stuff. I've put together stuff of my own, and it's all very kind of like, you know, if you were to sort of like, from this angle it looks all right, but from that angle over there, just a mess of cables.
I don't even want to pan my computer around because it's the same deal. We have boxes of merchandise and all these different things all around.
Yeah, and it's absolutely crazy, but it's something that, you know, it's always something that I always go like, how can I do this? How is this possible? What do I need to actually achieve this? And you know, it's a great mindset to have, especially like during right now. I mean, not everyone's got that kind of like mental sort of fortitude to do it, but it's still something that it's a great mindset to have, because it's kind of, it can get you out of many binds.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that it's great, even if you don't completely learn how to do it yourself, is even having an understanding of a little bit more about it, because I think as an artist, I also consider myself an entrepreneur, because I've been able to do music since I've never had a job other than music and video. Those have been my creative passions, and I've always kind of looked to ways of like, how do I support myself in my life, because I want to do this full time. So the money making to me has never really been important. It's more of like, how do I make enough that I can continue to do what I love every day? And so for me, it's all about kind of figuring out how the business works in different aspects, how things kind of come together, what makes things turn and work. And you know, I've really taken on the task too about running a lot of our merch store, and being a lot of like, I create a lot of custom items for our fans, like do custom jean vests for them, or jewelry, and hand stamp everything with lyrics. And to me, it also brings like a lot of meaning to everything, because not only are they, you know, buying something to support our music and our project, but it's a little piece of me that I'm saying thank you, you know, thank you for supporting us, thank you for being part of our family, because this is literally supporting the music that you love. And so I've always been in that mindset of trying to think smart, so that I can continue to do this, continue to make music, no matter what bumps we run into, including a major worldwide pandemic. It's to me just another thing to kind of look at, how do I, like you said, adapt and actually kind of maybe have fun and learn something if I can out of it. Like how to make candles. Like, who would know? I would never learn how to do that in other situations. So, you know, I'm trying my best over here to do what I can to survive and keep that optimistic outlook.
Awesome. Well, Skye, thank you very much. I really
Thank
appreciate
you very
your
much.
time and everything. Good luck with the album. Initiation out May 7th, everybody. Go listen to it, stream it, buy it, do what you do with it, just don't steal it. But yeah, no, thank you so much.
It was great chatting with you today.